Hello and welcome, you crazy people. My name is Jay, and it seems that there will be a new Star Wars miniature game made by Atomic Mass Games. And well, that's interesting. So basically, they've put out a bit of a very brief Q&A, basically, and in that they say that they've been considering working on a new game or ways to make it better or whatever. There's a couple of interesting things on it, and we'll have a look now. But the key thing is that there's probably going to be a new Star Wars miniature game made by Atomic Mass Games, which is big news. Somebody did say, and I hope I don't mean to be participating in that, that essentially they could be using this to a little bit like bury bad news or smooth over the transition from FFG to Atomic Mass Games, because it seems that, as I mentioned in an earlier video today, that people like Alex Davey are no longer going to be working on Legion. Maybe they've lost their jobs. I don't know the full details of that. We don't know that, but we do know Alex apparently isn't going to Atomic Mass Games. So you could look at it very cynically, but we'll just take it on face value for this because, I don't have any like super involved information. So I won't read this. A lot of this is not that interesting. I read it. I was just doing a stream on my Terrain channel because we talk about wargaming as well. But I was just doing the stream and we read it exactly. So what does it say? It says, why the move? And they say specialization, which is something we have thought about. And they basically want to specialize on the miniature games, which basically means that they want it to truly thrive. They want to make it bigger, right? Okay. Does this mean we can expect changes? So were there going to be changes? A lot of people are like, it won't really mean anything. There won't be many changes. Well, from the horse's mouth now, there's going to be changes, but do not fret too much, I think. So you can read it. They're like, we see ourselves as a lifelong journey of learning and improvement. That's a pretentious way of saying yes. So they say there will be changes. There's going to be some changes. And what they do say, though, is that these games have solid fan bases made up of people who've invested their hard-earned money and, more importantly, their time and creativity into creating army squadrons and fleets that are unique reflections of who they are. We deeply understand that kind of investment on a personal level, and we're committed to honouring it. Honouring it and valuing it in everything we do. So what they're saying there is that they're going to change some things, but they're not going to try and invalidate everything you currently have. They're not redoing the games from scratch, but they will be changing some things. So you might see the way, you might see Star Wars Legion maybe to move to a 6x4 table or something. I don't know. I'm just giving you stupid examples, but you might see some changes. Obviously, it's hard to know exactly what they're going to be. I would guess that's going to be both in terms of rules and the way that the miniatures are produced, essentially, so not necessarily distribution, but the way that they're sold. So the SKUs, how they're actually sold and packaged and stuff like that. So there's going to be some changes, but that's all well and good. That's all nice. That is pretty much what everybody thought. They're specializing in miniature games. Good. That's good to see. Like FFG probably had too many fingers and too many pies. I've said that before. They're going to make some changes to the games. Hopefully, they think they're going to make better changes to the game, so hopefully that's good. Whether or not you trust them or not is completely your choice. Whether or not it's good or bad will end up, we can be the judge of that when we see it, kind of thing. But this question, I'm not even 100% sure. Like, I don't think that many people were thinking about the answer to this at this point, but, does that include new Star Wars miniature games? Can we expect to see any additional titles? The answer to this is basically yes. While we're hyper-focused on our current games, we're always thinking of new ones too. Will and I have talked a lot. So, by the way, saying that they've talked a lot means that obviously they knew to some extent this was coming. Simon or Simone, I'm not sure you say his name, and Will have obviously had discussions about what's the future of this before yesterday. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to talk a lot in that time span. So, and that makes sense. They've not just announced it and then they're going to do it. They've already had some of the behind the scenes work done, as you would expect. Anyway, so they've talked a lot about how we can create cool new Star Wars miniature games. So it sort of implies multiple, which I don't think you can have like 4 or 5 Star Wars miniature based games and have them all be successful. That are like well supported forever, but that might signal the end of Armada at least. But we'll see. Anyway, that will excite fans and immerse them in stories that they love so much. This word stories, I think, might end up being important. Will says, the galaxy far, far away is a really big place with a lot to explore. It doesn't take Emperor Palpatine's force abilities to foresee that this is just the beginning of Star Wars miniature games. There's going to be more games. Now, a couple of things. We don't know what these games are going to be, but the fact that it says that the universe is a really big place, so we could see some sort of, I say Outer Rim, obviously there is a board game, but we could see some like Mandalorian, maybe like Bounty Hunter kind of games. We could see games that I think we might see a sort of like skirmish narrative-based combat patrol kind of game. That's what I personally think. So, well, you've heard it from the horse's mouth, like no confirmation of what the game is, what these games are going to be. They're obviously probably, well, I think it's very likely that we're going to just not see anything for 6 months, like for sure. I'd be surprised. Maybe next Gen Con you might see something. Because they're going to want to steady the ship first. I think that goal number one will be steady the ship and grow what you currently have. Goal number two will be to expand into something new. Now, we were just talking in the chat on the stream, as I said, of a couple of different options. I struggle personally to see how it can be anything other than, say, a Marvel Crisis Protocol-esque skirmish game. A game that maybe is going to take between 20 minutes and an hour, and it's going to be on a small board. I would like 2x2 instead of 3x3. I almost said FFG, AMG. The Lord and Saviour's AMG. Used to be the Lord and Saviour's FFG, of course. And yeah, so I would like, that's what I suspect. You know, it might end up being 3x3, but a skirmish game in the sense that it's just like, it's individual models, right? And the story's tight and close, and it's, you know, a bit more like, it's a bit more focused down with quality miniatures that, you know, maybe a little bit bigger than Legion, or some people would say maybe actually use Legion models a little bit akin to like Kill Team and Warcry, which I think would be okay. But generally FFG, we don't know about AMG, never really sold rules. You bought miniatures and they came with the rules. The rules were always sort of separate. So that's what, like, for me, if you were going to ask me what kind of game is more likely to succeed and be popular now, I would say skirmish games. I think the 6x4 massive war games are almost done. I think Legion's probably the last one, and that's obviously 6x3. But I think they might try and turn Legion into the bigger game, skirmish and maybe bigger, and that'll be it. And then they might have like a really close quarter, like story-based game kind of thing, perhaps. There's a couple of other alternatives. Several people in the chat were talking about pod racing game, which I love the sound of, which you could actually see. I think if they're going to do multiple games, you could see like a pod racing game because it's separate from everything. It could be sort of similar to Gaslands, but, you know, Gaslands done by a big company. No offense to the people who make Gaslands. I'm not sure who they are, so I don't know the name of the company. I can't remember the top of my head. But, you know, by one of the bigger companies, I should say. It feels offensive either way I say it, but you know what I mean. And something like that could be really good, for sure. You could see something like a bounty hunter skirmish brawl fight, something like that. One that a lot of people have always wanted, which is the classic sort of like you scale everything down and you do like an Adeptus Titanicus thing, and you have like AT-ATs that are like this big and AT-STs, and you know, it's like mechs. But somebody said in the chat, it was Steve, not that you know Steve, but that basically the rebels wouldn't have anything to fight against, so you'd maybe have to set it in the Clone Wars. And then it's like, I don't know. I know they talk about how the universe is like massive, but for me, if you want a new big game, and I don't mean like size, I mean like success, then you need it to essentially have Luke and Vader in it still. But that's sort of what Star Wars Legion was. I personally think Star Wars Legion should have been a 3x3 game. It should have been Marvel Crisis Protocol, but with like squads. One thing that I threw out there is I'd quite like to see a game, and I don't know how they would do this. Not like Warhammer Underworlds in terms of the board, which has a hex-based grid. That's not something I necessarily want to see, but that sales model I think was quite cool, where you buy like a gang, or something like that. You buy a faction of 3 models, or maybe even 2 to 5 models or whatever, and then you just play with them. There's no even like list building involved. You just play with them. Maybe you take upgrades or whatever, but you know, you can't like go, I don't want Luke, I want Steve. Sorry, Steve. But you know what I mean. You just use You just play with what you buy, kind of thing. There's all kinds of things it could be. I'm speculating. We have no idea. But the fact that they're making new games, they're going to have to make games that don't annoy the existing player base. If you make a game where it's miniatures, this is a 40k miniature, but if you make a game where it's miniatures and they're similar size to Legion, people were already up in arms when they did that with Legion and Imperial Assault, and those games are like completely different. So I think people will get up in arms about it almost no matter what they do. Well, unless it's like pod racing. But yeah, it's interesting. I sort of understand that people might say that this is a bit of a smokescreen to cover the bad news. And it's weird they didn't need to answer this question. Like, I don't think anybody was like on the edge of the seat being like, are they going to make new games? They could have easily have just left it with the first two questions, like, why have you done this? We're going to specialize. Are you going to make changes? Yes, but we're not going to like throw away your money. Everything you bought still going to be valid. So they could have done that. They didn't do that. They said they're going to make new games. It's big. It's big. It's really like big news just in the wargaming sphere, because I've always said we need good, decent competitors to Games Workshop, and FFG were that. Yeah, there was some like Steamforged and stuff like that, but really, FFG were like, X-Wing for one point was like number 2 in terms of game, just behind 40k. So they were the only ones ever actually posing any kind of challenge. So it's big news, and that's why I'm talking about it. As I said, am I back? I don't know. I'm back. I'm not back. I'm not making videos. But just to quickly segue, I'm really interested in Age of Sigmar at the minute. So, but there's no point me buying anything or even making videos on the stuff because I can't play the game. We can't play the games until whatever next year. So I'm not in any rush to do anything and make content because I'm not playing games. So that's where I am. That's the truth. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing about stuff that I like talking about at the minute. But yeah, I'm it's been an interesting 2 days. I think somebody was covering Star Wars Legion so intensely. It's like massive news. Yeah. So that's why I'm talking about it. Have a most beautiful day. I was going to say like and subscribe. Doesn't matter. Have a beautiful day though. Goodbye.